So hello guys, it's the last talk today I think, so thanks for being here still. I think we are all tired, I am as well, but yeah, it won't be very long, we have only 30 minutes, the topic is very big, so I will try to tell you as much as possible about the art of prototyping. That's something that we try to do every time when we do new games or work further on games that already exist. So a little about me. So I'm Grzegorz Mazur. For the last more than 10 years, I was working at my own company, which I set up with my friend Kasper Kwiatkowski. It's called Monarch, yeah, and I'm like one of the bosses and technical director. But originally, I'm a programmer. So before that, I spent like 4 years working at 11-bit Studios, where I did a couple of games, which the most important is This War of Mine, which I love to talk about, and there will be also quite a lot of examples from This War of Mine today. I'm also a seasoned lecturer. I used to teach how to program games. A musician, board games lover. Here's my email. If you would like to talk later, feel free to email me. So there are a couple of games we did as a Monarch. So as you can see, there are some titles. So it's from the very small titles we did like within 3 people in 6 months to titles we did in 30 people for 4 years. So it's quite vast range, but all of this I would consider still indie games for all the important platforms. So I will give you some examples from these games, but also from This War of Mine, which again I will say I love to talk about because it was a very successful game, but also it had very big cultural impact. So it's a very important game for myself, and I think we did a very good job when it comes to the production side and prototyping, which I will tell you about more. So, but first start with a question: what is an actual prototype? So, by the way, some of the ideas I will tell you today may sound obvious or, it's simple things, but for the first time I was doing this talk, it was like 10 years ago, so I have 10 more years of experience, but still I feel this is very important to remember and repeat these ideas, because the more we are experienced, the more we are tempted to not prototype, to just jump to conclusions too early, and that's how we lose money later and lose time. So that's why I like to repeat about this all the time. So going back, what is a prototype? It's a sketch, early representation of the game, but not only a game, it can be a part of the game, like a model of like a part of the game. So for example, of a specific feature, of art style, of the icon of the game, the name of the game, everything, right? And the most important part is that we create prototype to answer very specific questions. So we ask some specific question that we look answer for, and we build the prototype to answer, right? So the question shouldn't be like too big and too like broad, like is my game fun? Because it's very hard to prove it, or will my game sell? But rather ask very specific question important for your prototype. So for example, will my, USP understandable to player or enjoyable? Or will my core loop idea will have proper pacing, right? Or will algorithm for the game that I created will be fast enough for a target platform? So very specific questions that you can find a specific answer for. And we do it to test the idea, because no idea is like proven until it's proven, right? So that's what I said like a minute ago, that even no matter how experienced we are, we have to check our ideas to be sure that it will work out in the final game, because we do entertainment. It's hard to tell if the idea we create will be entertaining in the end. So we ask these questions to check them. So it's also element of risk management. So especially if we do something unique, something no one did in the past, there are some risky elements that we never did before. So we should check them as early as possible in the production process to mitigate this risk, to see if we can actually achieve what we want and so on. And again, we can build a prototype for that at the very early stage of production to be sure this is doable, what we want to achieve. So we tend to think about prototypes as something we do only in pre-production. Sometimes we even say, okay, we are in prototyping phase of a project, but I would also like to emphasize that we should prototype all the time, even after pre-production, during production, and even after we launch the game, because we can create some updates, some DLCs, and we still should prototype what we want to achieve to be sure that what we are planning makes sense. Why prototype? Because it's fast and cheap. So good prototype is always done very fast, very cheap as possible, to check your idea, to find its best and worst part. So I will repeat this a couple of times today, that the idea is never we don't know everything about our idea before we actually test it, right? So we do prototypes to check ideas, find its best and worst parts, bottlenecks, any problems we can later find to improve your idea. Rarely the first idea is the best. Sometimes we have to iterate it many times to improve it. And again, we prototype to improve this idea, to iterate, to compare variants. Sometimes we have an idea for a game or for a feature, like for USP, but there might be different ways to implement it in the game, how to actually translate it to game mechanics and so on. And again, if we have a couple of variants and we are not sure which one is the best, let's create 2 or 3 prototypes and compare them and choose the best one. And then we are sure that, okay, we chose the best version and we can go further. To estimate time better. Again, if we do something unique, something we never did before, it's hard to estimate how much time it will take us to have like a production, ready production, like a final version of something. Again, let's do small prototype, fast and cheap, and learn about what we want to do to estimate time and costs much better. To test on people, this is super important all the time, right? We usually create prototypes to test them on people to gather feedback. Not always test on people because there are some exceptions to that we'll show you later, and also to convince and inspire people. You can use prototype to convince the other people in your team whether something is good or bad, but also to use it to find a publisher, find an investor, whatever you need. Especially now when we have this crisis in the game that you have to have like a solid prototype or even a vertical slice to prove your idea, to prove the game will make sense. You have to have a prototype to talk to the publisher, right? Why not prototype? Maybe there are some reasons why we shouldn't do it. So maybe because your idea is really well thought out. So I already told you about like 10 more years in experience for myself, for example. The idea is never well thought out before we will actually prove it, right? So we always have to test it, no matter how experienced we are. We are doing experiences, we are doing entertainment for people, we have to check it. Maybe because you don't have time. Why not skip the prototype and just start doing production, doing assets, animations, and everything? So it's tempting, but it never works. So because imagine you have an idea for a game, you believe it's amazing, and then you spend a year working on a game, producing assets and so on, and it doesn't sell later, or people don't like it. So actually you lost 1 year of work of your full team and assets and and artists and everyone. Instead, you could maybe spend a month on doing a prototype and realize, okay, this idea is not that great as I thought in reality, so you will trash it. So you actually lost 1 month, but then you saved another 11 months that you would lose instead if you would just do a game that didn't make sense in the first place, right? Even though idea sounded great. So maybe there's another reason, maybe because you imitate. Yes, and I think this is the only moment when we shouldn't or don't have to prototype if we copy something, imitate. So nothing to be ashamed of, because if we do like a game with something unique in it, this is unique, this should be prototype. But if some other, for example, features are supporting this unique thing and are like imitated or copied from different games, you don't have to prototype because the prototype is already on the market. It's already proven, so no point in prototyping. So I would say this is the only moment when you skip that process. So how to do it? I already said that, so I repeat also a couple of times this phrase: do it fast and do it cheap with your best people. So we always try to put the best people because they have the best knowledge, the best experience, so they will know how to go with shortcuts, how to find a specific solution as soon as possible, and do it fast and cheap. So whatever you can, like steal assets, fake them, like whatever you can. Steal from your own games or from the market, from other games, it doesn't matter. It's only your internal work. So you can do whatever you can. So you do everything to have your answer for the question asked ASAP, right? So this is the goal. So you do like a very bad code usually, and so on and so on. So here's an example. First example I will show you from Sleepwalker's Journey. It's the game we did like long time ago in 11 Studios. We had an idea for a platformer game for mobile games, but again, we didn't know how exactly do levels, how to do input system, and so on. So instead of starting with art and already putting money into that, we just did a very small prototype. I don't know, in a week or 2, with the boxes that we stole from a previous game of the company, and just put some colors, and we're playing with input systems, how we built levels, and so on. So we could iterate very fast, very cheap to find the best solution and be sure that when we started to do assets, for example, for the game, the gameplay already is there. So yeah, ask a proper question important for your game, and usually we have like a big question that it's hard to answer in one solution, so we should divide the problem into smaller problems and then build a prototype for each of them. And then if we are happy with each of the solutions, then we combine them into like a bigger prototype or a full game. So this is an example from this War of Wine from very early days when we did like a small prototype. This is like a connection of 3 prototypes already. So we had a prototype, small prototype for like how we should build the levels, how we should do level design. The other one was for like an animation system, and the other for input system, how we should actually do input system that will be pleasant to play and will be understandable to people. So yeah, and also you should choose proper prototype type for a problem. There are different kinds of prototypes you can do. You can do like a card prototype, physical prototype. You can do Excel sheet, like a simulation in some other tool than a game engine. So I will tell you more about it when I will talk about examples. So choose the proper one that will help you to reach the answer as soon as possible on the smallest cost you can do. So yeah, when you do a prototype, you test it on people, validate. You check if it works or not, if you have your answer or you don't have it yet. So you have your idea, then you create a prototype, then you validate it, and you go the circle as long as you can and as long as you need until you will have answer that satisfies you or you know you cannot go further. So you go in this loop and then you break it, break the loop when you have your answer, and you have to be very honest with yourself whether the answer is satisfactory or not, whether my mechanic works or not, whether my, I don't know, art style is unique enough or not. So if it is, that's great. So we succeeded in the prototyping, and we should develop it further. But also to not be tempted to jump to the production very fast, since we did it very cheaply, very fast, and probably very dirty with stolen assets, stolen code, whatever. We should do cleaning phase, like do a whole cleanup to make it production ready. Because if we will not do it right now, we will have like a technical debt later, and we will pay much more later. So it's very important to not skip that, because it's also tempting to skip that because it looks like, okay, it's additional cost. But actually it saves money and time. Sometimes we even, like we do a prototype that is very quick and dirty, even though it proved what it had to be proven. Sometimes we redo it from scratch for the production. Sometimes it's cheaper and faster to just redo it and not clean it. But it's still, in general and full production, it's still very valuable and wise to do. But if the answer is negative, okay, my game mechanic doesn't work, my game is not unique enough, it's not pleasant to play, you can trash it, right? So you only spent little time, little money because you did it fast and cheap, so there's no big cost on that. But not everything is lost. Usually when we do a prototype, even if it fails, we learn something new, we maybe have new ideas, maybe we'll work on a new game thanks to that, or a new feature for the game. It's not everything is lost, so there's always some gain even if we fail with the prototyping phase. So in case of failure, you can always trash it and start from the beginning. So this is very important to remember, that cool prototype helps you in creating cool game. If you build a prototype of your full game based on your great idea, like a pitch or elevator pitch or whatever you have, and you realize, okay, this is like, it's okay, but I will further fix it in the production, probably you won't. It might not be better. So if the prototype is not fun, the game won't be fun if you add all the assets, all the levels, all the production values. You will just put more money, put more visuals and production values, but the game won't get better. So you should prototype as long until you are very happy with the game. So probably the game won't get better later if it's not cool enough. So it's very tempting to skip that, because we also did that mistake a couple of times, even though I do speeches like that. Okay, so prototype is okay-ish, but we'll fix it in the production. So you can still maybe fix this game, but it will be much more expensive to do it later than earlier. So don't be tempted with jumping to conclusions too quick. Okay, so my favorite part is examples, like some old examples, some newer examples, some weird examples. So this is an example of a physical prototype. This is from the very old days from 11-bit Studios, when the game Anomaly 2 was being created, and the guys wanted to introduce multiplayer modes to the game. It was asymmetrical game when one side was playing aliens, the other side was playing humans, and it was like an inverted tower defense game. So there were a couple of ideas how to actually implement or design the multiplayer mode into this game. So again, instead of first implementing this in the game engine, which is super expensive, or choosing the direction just on a paper or idea in the brain, the designers just closed themselves in a conference room for 3 days with drinks and water and food, and played the multiplayer mode on a whiteboard. So they had some ideas, some rules, they drew the level, and were playing with some rising stones and markers. Thanks to that, they were able to change the rules of the game on the way and immediately see, for example, if the both sides are enough engaged, if the rules are understandable, if the game is balanced properly, and so on. So they did a couple of prototype sessions in that way, and I think in 3 days they had a good idea which way is the best one, because if it works here, it might work already in the game when they implement it in the game engine. If it doesn't work here, it won't be better in the game engine. So that was a very quick way a very cheap way to find the best multiplayer solution for this game. Another paper prototype from Monarch times. So it's from our first game, Crush Your Enemies, where we had an idea. We want to do like a tiny RTS game to bring like an experience of RTS, like a big RTS game, to the very small sessions, very small game that you will play for 5 minutes instead of 5 hours. So again, we had this pitch, but we had a couple of ideas how to implement it. And again, instead of jumping to Unity and already prototyping in the game engine, we just took papers, like a card of papers, and were drawing the levels, experimenting with that, and playing multiplayer on paper, which was super cheap. We were doing this in a cafe place, drinking coffee and watching people. It was super fun. And again, couple of iterations, and we had idea, okay, this is good, this is bad, this is good, this is bad. So we knew how to direct our development. And actually, what's funny, this level here on the paper ended up in the final game. So it was a good example. It works. So we prototyped how we place buildings, how we control units, and so on. So it was very quick. So again, this is another type of prototype you can use to do something very cheap, very fast, and to check if your idea works or not. Prototype in Excel. So this is an example from this world of mine where part of the challenge was to coming up how to simulate the life of these humans you take care of during the game, how many parameters there should be, how they should be simulated, how we should control that. So again, instead of jumping into the game engine immediately, one designer just took Excel and created the first simulation and was experimenting with that for a couple of days until he was happy. Then he was showing that to other people in the studio, gathering feedback, and iterating very quickly in an Excel file because it's super simple, right? When he was happy with that, then he built like a separate app. So it wasn't done in the game engine, but as a separate app, like written in C# in maybe another 2 days, because it was too complex for a spreadsheet, because he wanted to simulate like a couple of characters with some more actions you can do. And again, quick implementation. He was going around the office, talking to people and testing whether it works or not. So it all taken like a couple of days to the moment when many different solutions were checked, and he chose the best one. And then with that, we went to a programmer to put it into game engine. So it was super fast, super efficient, and super cheap. I don't have, unfortunately, photographs for that because that would be best. So prototype as a card game. So you can create like a board game or a card game of your digital game. So this is an example from Oser the Insult Simulator, the game we did with Monarch. I think it was the most successful our game so far. It's like a Monty Python inspired game where two gentlemen try to insult each other with building sentences or insults from parts of the sentences. So we had this speech, again, it was created on a game jam, but we had a couple of ideas how to actually implement it, how to score, how to count scores, how the turns should work. So again, instead of just doing a video game out of that, we took a paper, cut it into pieces, wrote some sentences, and started playing with that on a table. And within 2 hours, we were able to come up with a good design, how the scoring should work, how the turns should be done, and how the sentences should be cut within the cards. We are changing the rules during the gameplay, just drawing on the cards. It was super easy, super fast, super efficient. So the first prototype on the paper was done in 2 hours, and then it took us 40 more hours because it was a game jam to finalize the game. And we knew it would be fun because it was fun after 2 hours doing this on paper, right? So we had a proof. Another technical prototype. This is something that you usually don't test on people. Maybe you have an algorithm to test or some like technical difficulty you will have to solve one day. So with this world of mine, we had this algorithm to do for this like a fog of war system that was shading the places you don't see. So also we had some ideas how to make it. We want to make sure it will work in a very like a low-end PCs. So instead of waiting with that for the moment in production when we actually need it, we prototyped it very, very early to be sure we can actually achieve it. So we did like a separate prototype with just the character moving and no more gameplay, like no gameplay at all, just to prove our algorithm idea would work. So we tested first one, it was too slow, second one too slow, and the third one did work and it was fine. So this was this risk management thing that I told you about like some time ago, that you should also prototype these risky elements ASAP and do a prototype and check how it works and be sure that there will be like a no surprise and no trap later. Art prototype. I think this is something actually a lot of people do. Before you start doing assets for the game and putting art into your game, you start with what we call mock-ups, so like fake screenshots. You can do it on paper, you can do it in Photoshop, whatever it takes. Sometimes in Monarch we just take even screenshots from existing games and we overpaint them, overdraw, just to check the first idea, to play with the camera. It's faster this way than the other. So this War of Mine was not an exception. So we had a couple of ideas how we actually want this game to look like, and they were done totally like outside of a game engine. It's out of the main development by artists on some screens that were just static screens. And yeah, so one of them was chosen as the best one, and then it was implemented to the game once we knew that this fake screenshot is already distinctive enough and tells what we want to tell. Digital prototype, this is something that people usually think about when we talk about game prototypes. So this is like a small model, small chunk of your game that just proves the specific thing and nothing else. So this example is already shown. So as I told you, here we were testing in a very simple way using assets from the previous games, how we build levels, how the input system works, how the animation system works. So given all these prototypes I show you with this War of Mine, these are not all, but I think the most interesting. When we proven with all of these that these specific chunks of the game work well and they are cool and fun, then we connected them together to create like a final prototype demo, which of course then had to be iterated quite a lot of times. But we already knew that the parts of the prototype are good enough, so there shouldn't be many surprises. So the only surprise would be how we connect them, right? So it was much easier, and thanks to that, in quite short time, I think it was maybe 2 or 3 months, we had very good final demo, because we divided the problems on small prototypes and checked them in a very fast and efficient way without wasting time on doing everything in game engine and so on, especially that it was in-house engine, so it wasn't as easy as Unreal or Unity to build the game around it. Yeah, thank you very much. This is it.
We have time for a couple of questions if you want, so raise your hands, should that be the case.
For example, when you have like a big idea of a game, like a mechanic or something, do you think you should like prototyping just that specific mechanic you want, or maybe make it like small things first? Like for example, a mechanic that you press like 3 buttons and an object flows away. Do you think you should like separate them and make it simple, more kind?
Yeah, I think the prototype should be as simple as possible. And if you don't know if something you came up with is actually fun, test only that. So the smallest chunk possible. But sometimes, of course, it's not possible. Sometimes if you test something, you need some other features to be around to test it in the context. So then you need probably more things to be done. But always try to distill what is exactly to be tested and test only that. Yeah, so.
Voy para allá.
Hello.
Hello.
I know you said that you should prototype as much as possible until you get the right idea. But I wanted to ask how much time you should spend on each prototype. For example, the first paper prototype, there was one you said that took only 2 hours to get down the whole mechanics. Like for example, maybe that didn't work. When you give up and you pass on to the next thing. For example, you're a week or 2 weeks or a few hours?
Oh, that's a hard question. I think it depends on the game and actually what you want to do, because maybe if it's like a big game, like with, I don't know, we did city builder called Flatland in the past, so we had a prototype that was produced for 8 months, for example, so it was a long process, so the first ideas were promising, so we were expanding that, but I think after 8 or so months, we were ready, okay, this like a core prototype is working, it's good enough, right? But with, I know, this card game, it was 2 hours, right? So I think there's no single question to that. You have to feel it somehow, like how, whether you should see how much probably you need to put work to try to prove something. So if it's a big game, probably it will take you more. And you know, and also be aware how much time you want to spend it or how much money you have on that. So there's no single like advice here. It's hard for me to tell. So sometimes it's super quick, sometimes it's longer time.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Una última pregunta, si queréis. Pues muchas gracias. Thank you, Greg
Yeah,
Mazur.
thank you very much.
Big applause for him, please.